So, good morning. I'm walking around early in the morning today. It's going to be probably in the low hundreds today where I am. And you got to get out early in the morning. And you got to have a hat, and you got to have straps on the hat because it'll blow away. And this, I remember when I moved to California many years ago, seeing these hats and thinking like, wow, and seeing people even wearing, having umbrellas with the sun, because the umbrella, when you're in the shade, it makes so much a difference in a dry heat. Okay, so these things evolved, to the environment, right? So when I talk about my my diet, how I live basically, which is just lower carb, higher ancestral fat, less frequent eating, and emotional support beverages, basically. I've got coffee, I've got herbal tea, I've got seltzer water, I've got lemon water. My friend here has a lemon tree, and she has the most awesome lemons, just literally fresh off the tree, that I can put in water. And that is such a treat and such a wonderful thing. And just put some fresh squeezed lemon on my salad, put some fresh squeezed lemon on my meal. So I'm not asking you to believe any new thing, okay? I'm asking you to look at what evolved in our diet and how our ancestors ate. And really, there's no new science. The great-grandparents, the grandparents, they did the science. They knew how to feed a family, and these traditions were passed on over thousands of years about how people adapted to a certain climate. What was a well-balanced, healthy diet in Eastern Europe came out of what grew in that land. And there were polyphenols in the beets. There were, there's all kinds of healing things in the whole diet of the Eastern European diet, right? The East Asian Indian diet that has turmeric and spices and all these things, and everyone is very much, into the East Asian Indian diet now. It had butter, it had ghee, it had cheese, it had a lot of fat in it as well, saturated fat, okay? And now it's like, this is how I see how things work. In medicine, there's really no money in just saying, hey, do what your great-grandparents did. And this is how the old school doctors that I remember training with in the 90s that ran their own small practices, they really didn't mess with people's diets. They didn't tell people to give up their ancestral foods. They would help them when they were sick. They would tell them when they were overweight. They would talk with them about their stressors. These were family doctors, but they got to know these people. They got to know these families. And, it's just, I've seen it just gradually devolve, over 30 years, where now, you're just so little time with the person. But the constant is, take time for your life. I think that's the other tough thing that's taken me, 56 years to realize that there's a price for these things. I remember when people, and shortage consciousness, when I was in medical school, I remember really, you realize that there was no time for your physical needs, even like going to the bathroom. You'd be in surgery for hours, and I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. Isn't that awful? You think about ER and it's so glamorous and how wonderful. I think like, wow, like I don't, there's no time to eat. There's no time to go to the bathroom. There's no time to sleep. It was insane, right? And what would I do? What was my crutch? It was a granola bar. It was Ensure, sometimes from a patient care area. I mean, it was sugary things that were around. Sometimes it was fruit, but usually it was chips. And the fruit wasn't much better than the chips, really. Now that I know, I know. The better thing would have been to have a seltzer water, or have a lemon water, or have a herbal tea or something without calories that was killing me. But so it's like I don't want to sell you on anything, but I just want you to think about celebrate the good that is there in your life and what is the good in your food world. Well, what did you eat as a child that you liked that is an echo of an ancestral healthy food? And this is the other thing. There's no bad diet. People will say, well, I'm Hispanic and we just eat, no, the Hispanic diet, there's so many healthy things in a Hispanic diet, but they weren't the things I was trained in med school to think were healthy, and essentially the meats and vegetables. That is really that to me is the lower carb things in the diet. In the East Indian diet, the cheese, the ghee, and the spices and the vegetables. I cannot have as many carbs as I used to when I was younger. I just am not that physically active. And I think this is the other truth is everybody hits a wall. Like I was constantly on this treadmill, like I've got to exercise because I've got to have carbs because I've got to have energy. Well, I would never tell a person, hey, you need cocaine for energy, that cocaine will give you energy. And, really, that's what the carbs were like for me. I'd have the granola bar, I'd be ready to go, I'd be ready to see more patients, then I would crash, then I'd need another one, then I'd have an M&Ms, then I'd have a Diet Coke, and then I was just on this roller coaster all day long. Then I would just I couldn't make it home. I'd sit in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant, and it was the one place I really had peace too, because my life was totally out of balance. I was just working. I was trying to be a good mom. I was trying to be a good doctor. I was just put myself last. My health came last, work. And then you get to the end of your life, you get to the end of your working life, and what is left? We don't have health, I also Airbnb, and I had a military person staying with me recently. And I remember thinking, like, this person's habits are so healthy. Like, he basically really didn't stress eat. He treated food with respect, and he could go long periods without eating. And I remember thinking, like, I remember thinking how cruel it must have been in the military to be training and, be out and, going through basic training, and how awful it must, much respect to the military. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been through horrible medical training, but I've never served in the military. I mean, that to me is just, so much respect. But, he said we would just push through the hunger. We were just told, just push through it, in medicine, we just had snacks every time. We would joke about having eighth meal, like there was a Taco Bell fourth meal joke. Oh, I'm on eighth meal now. So I thought the free food they were offering us to stay up 36-hour shifts was a kindness. And now I realize, that free food was really a detriment. That was hurting me. It would have been like offering us free cigarettes, and this is the other thing too. We say sitting is the new smoking. Really, snacking is the new smoking. I remember a time when it was socially acceptable to smoke, and my family smoked. People smoked. That was what people did. I waitressed. People had cigarettes everywhere, and that was just normal. But now we would never allow that. But it's perfectly acceptable for someone to just stuff their face all day long with Triscuits at a nurse's station. And there are many nurses probably doing this right now, and physicians doing this right now. And no one would judge them. They'd say, oh, they're really dedicated. Oh, and they're having a whole wheat cracker. Oh, it's whole wheat. Yeah, the American Heart Association says this is heart healthy. Okay, well, it's not working out too well, is it? We the people in the military go through so much. It's absolutely horrible. But they end up at the, with some modicum of health at the end when they can hopefully retire and, and then take time for their, de-stressing all the horrible things they have seen. But in medicine, we just push and push and push. And then we end up diabetic, sick, and fat at the end of our lives. And that's where I was headed. So, let it go with love and light. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest. But I just want to leave it out there because I think there are people suffering like me. And I think, in a way, my intelligence really was a detriment too. I couldn't hear the still small voice of my great-grandfather saying, if you eat too much bread and potatoes, you'll get fat and sick. And grease is goodness. These were the things he said to my mother in 1970. Grease is goodness, and if you eat too much bread and potatoes, you'll get fat and sick. Wisdom of 50 years of being a grocer, blotted out by all my medical training, which was not based in something like altruistic. It was based on selling things. It was, based on selling this food pyramid way of eating, which was never based in science. Well, and again, where's the science? My great-grandfather did a 50-year longitudinal study of watching what people bought in the grocery store and how they looked. That's superior to all these Ivy League things that are going on. As a person that looked for 50 years, and you can just see it. You look at old pictures of us in the United States 50 years ago and look at us now, and look at what we're eating now and what we ate 50, 70 years ago. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope you have a great day. Stay cool, and you're a cactus living in a rainforest, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.